She's like my favorite person to have on my interviews. And now we have Holly Brink. And we are going to be talking about something very serious and important for agents. So if you're an agent, listen up. There's some major changes going on. They're not changes yet, but I'm going to let you guys talk more about it. But the National Association of Realtors, there's a court battle. Anyway, y'all take it from here.
So there have been some serious changes implemented in how agents do business because there is that NAR lawsuit. The NAR lawsuit is, I guess, kind of alleging that we're like Holly. It's where, since the seller is paying the entire commission, but we don't, as a buyer's agent, we don't represent the sellers. That is where the lawsuit comes from. Anyway, so do you have anything to add to that, Holly, before we move forward?
Yeah, basically the claim is that these sellers feel like their part was inflated and they didn't know that what was being charged them was being shared with the cooperative agent. So the lack of communication is one of many things.
But even though we have them sign disclosures, we put it all over the listing paperwork and everything, the lawsuit is still trying to get us to change the way that we do business, i.e., buyers paying for their own buyer's agent's commission. This was a huge selling point when we were, agents and we're trying to pick up buyers and we're like, hey, it's always free. Don't worry about it. And that is one of the big changes coming down very soon. I bet that will eventually just start happening. And so Holly and I saw an opportunity to make sure that agents are educated in proving their value and their worth, and also protecting themselves in this market.
So it's actually become a code of ethics thing. We're not allowed to even say that buyer's agent services are free. So I always try to say, there's no out-of-pocket cost. But yeah, Sandy has the course background and course education, and we each bring a different sort of piece to the puzzle. And so we've developed some things to help agents be able to sell themselves and set the expectation that they will be paid, one way or the other.
So the amazing thing about Holly and I co-creating this course, it's called the Badass Blueprint Buyer's Agent Edition. The great thing about it is Holly started as a buyer's agent on a team. And so her whole training was about interviewing buyers, lead gen for buyers, going forward throughout the whole process. So she brings like a shitload of knowledge to the table. And I guess what I'm famous for is bringing the devil's advocate.
Yes. The personality.
The cool thing is that she and I have always done business differently. And that's the beautiful thing about real estate, is that everybody gets to run their business how they see fit. But Holly has just an awesome blueprint. And so we outline everything in this course, especially the buyer consultation, which I never realized was so important before going out. I mean, I've always flown by the seat of my pants, sure, I make sure they're pre-approved, but beyond that, I'm just going and showing houses. And I realized that buyers are what happens next in the process, or what the hell is earnest money after I'm writing a contract, or anything like that. And so Holly sits down her buyers and explains the entire process, which was incredible.
Thanks, Sandy Lynn. So yeah, it's, what I try to educate our agents on is that much like a listing appointment where you go to the listing, and you should do it even if it's a gimme, right? Even if it's a come list my house call. that's all it is in reverse. And so you call it a buyer consultation, call it a buyer strategy session, call it whatever you want. What it is it's getting in front of those buyers, asking the questions and finding out what they're looking for, and then explaining what that process looks like. And even if they've bought before, you can say, well, we're going to be talking about this market because it's probably a different market than when you bought before. And we're going to talk about, maybe it's a different state even, because for our states it can be much different, state to state. So really laying it all out there for the buyers in advance and going through the process and investing 20 to 45 to an hour of your time up front to help alleviate, buyer agent shopping or disloyalty. And it just helps really cut off a lot of that at the pass.
Yeah. So as we were creating this course, I myself learned a ton from Holly. And what we did was we put in amazing scripts into this course. Not just the NAR lawsuit, which is a part of this course explaining why it's so important, but other things are happening, such as I'm licensed in Iowa and Illinois. And in Illinois, you are now, in certain parts of Illinois, you are now allowed to offer 0 cooperating compensation. So imagine you're a buyer's agent, like how I used to do, flying around showing houses, and they're like, yes, let's write one. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I'm not going to get paid on this one. So we really have to start treating this more professionally, like a listing appointment ahead of time, and saying, outlining scenarios that there might be, this is what I charge, and how it can be worked into deals, essentially. Yeah. Offers.
Yeah.
And I want Holly to talk more about that because she has been doing this for a long time and I'm a newbie with it. So it's an incredible concept to me. I've always been able to negotiate my commission with a FSBO, no problem, things like that. But now, we have these brokerages offering $100, $1, 0 fucking dollars, mm-hmm. 0 fucking dollars if you bring the buyer. And to me, I'm like, we got to do something. This is kill or be killed now. If you are going to protect your paycheck, now is the time to learn how to do that.
Right. And I've noticed that the standard commission for buyer's agents is going down in my area. And one of the benefits to telling your buyer up front, hey, this is how much I charge. If for some reason the seller doesn't pay, this is how much you cover. And so they appreciate knowing that. But lo and behold, we go into a builder and they're paying a lower commission. So my buyer, knowing that the rest needs to be covered, negotiates it with the builder for
mm-hmm.
me. We're negotiating everything and they're like, well, this is how much my agent needs. And she was able to pull that. So it's a collaboration and you just have to be upfront and honest. So, and when you have years of experience, I've paid thousands of dollars for coaching. I am an expert at what I do. I'm not an attorney, but I'm an expert in real estate contracts and negotiations and repair negotiations. And this is how much I charge. I have a mortgage to pay. I'm not a charity. So that's how we get paid. And don't be afraid to ask or tell people how much
Holly was telling me, because it's such a new concept to me. And Holly tells me that when she does these buyer strategy sessions and then she gets to, this is the what I charge part, they're already all in by that point. Mm-hmm. And they're just oh yeah, of course you deserve to get paid, Mm-hmm. So it was really interesting to learn the concepts of how you explain and prove your value. And then at the end, you're like, great, so let's talk money, blah, blah, blah. And by then they're just yeah, absolutely. So there is no way I would have been able to do this shit without a course like this. And that's
a lot of agents can't. Yeah. They don't know. I'm just to the point where I'm if I'm changing out of my yoga pants, I'm getting paid. So I obviously have to go show you homes.
That is exactly how I feel,
So one of the things that we are expecting to catch up to this is being able to allow for commission negotiations within the contracts. Now that is still a code of ethics violation, so you have to tread lightly, and it cannot be in the purchase agreement. So some of the different ways that I handle that, most commonly, is I tell them it's added to their closing costs, and we ask for seller concessions to offset the cost. Usually that works out and it works fine. Obviously, in different markets, that can be more of a challenge, getting the seller to pay anything towards closing costs. And so that's where we have to be a little bit more creative on how we're going to approach that. And so, but that's the most common way to do it, is just, okay, you're going to owe me $900, for example, the difference between what I charge and what they're offering, and that will be added to your closing costs. So why don't we go ahead and ask the seller to pay $1,200 towards your closing costs, and it'll offset my fee. And they're like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So, it's really that simple. So that it'll be nice when things catch up to this, though, and we are allowed to include some sort of addendum saying, hey, thanks for offering, 18 apples, but I want 73 apples, that'll be nice when that day comes, for sure.
Well, and the other thing that I do is, prior to showing a house, so like, I will warn my buyers, this is one of these houses. Do you still want to see it? And a lot of times they might be like, no.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, hey, let me pick up the phone and see what I can do calling the listing agent. So if the listing agent is offering like an embarrassing co-op compensation, I will call them up and I'll say, hey, I have a buyer for your listing, but they're not interested in seeing it unless I'm going to get this much, and they do change the cooperating compensation sometimes out of embarrassment, which they should be embarrassed. I'm sorry. And then also out of just wanting to sell the property and do the best for their clients, which they should be wanting to do as well.
Well, and presentation too, if they know that you have a buyer's rep with your buyer and your buyer knows that they have to come up with the difference, it's like, okay, well, they don't want to see it because I'm not just being selfish. This is how much I charge. And the listing agents don't know how long you've been working with that buyer. You could have shown them 700 homes. You could have fired that buyer 3 times and they just keep coming back. And at this point, you just I've had that happen. And you just need to get paid. So I noticed, I was just talking to my broker about this probably yesterday. I'm noticing that the compensation for buyers agents it's going down, and it's going down with brokers and listing agents that own the home. They're the actual seller.
Yes. And it's fucking insane because in this market, the buyer's agents are doing all the fucking work.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I was going to say that. Yeah. The seller was a broker.
More important than ever to make sure that you are charging what your worth is.
Mm-hmm.
And I have said to, so like this comes in handy in our course because Holly and I have different ways about going about things. She is super sweet, like super positive. And I'm just like, go find someone better then. You know what I mean? And I'm like the reverse psychology, and they're like, no, we definitely want to use you,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, that's to the point that, like, I dare you to find somebody better than me.
Well, and I need to interject that we need to stop like, I guess we can see when it's a pattern and we can see when it's the agent doing this, but it's important for me to get the message across that we have been training and trying to teach our agents that the seller is supposed to pick the co-op. So we're supposed to say, I charge X. How much do you want to offer to who brings the buyer? So I just need to interject that out, put that out there, that's what EXP thinks. That's the direction we're headed. So, although, like I said, you can tell sometimes if it's a trend and it's the agent, but we should be giving our sellers that autonomy as well. With this new direction on where we're headed.
Well, I guarantee you agents are not doing that yet. They should
right.
be. I totally think that it's a great way to train agents, put it in the seller's hands Like, how badly do you want somebody to bring the buyer to this house? Like, here's my fee, and then how much do you want to charge or pay out for the buyer's agent? But I guarantee you, agents aren't doing that. They're undercutting each other left and right because they don't know how to prove value.
Right. Well, and maybe you guys need to do like a listing presentation course too, because I'm guilty. I go and I fill out the listing agreement. I send it. I'm like, I can go over everything with you. Just let me know if you have questions. And they trust me. They sign it. But yeah, that's like, I'm just putting, but that's part of my brand. I'm not paying a buyer's agent less than the standard amount.
That's exactly how I am as well.
If I can't negotiate the full commission, I take the hit.
I take the cut.
And that buyer's agent's going to get. I'm not going to do that to them. So,
Well, I have a reputation amongst the agents. I don't want that kind of reputation.
Nope, me either. And there's some broker. I used to be with a brokerage that you could not pay a buyer's agent less than a certain amount.
Yeah,
thought that was
I used to be with a brokerage like that as well.
Yeah,
and I appreciate it sometimes. You
Yeah.
know,
It's part of their brand too.
But that being said, now there's brokerages out there that are like literally in their name. They are going to charge you a certain amount and then pay this much to, or $100 or whatever to the buyer's agent. And so even though we maintain integrity, I consider it integrity within our own businesses and pride in what we do and everything. There's these people out there that are doing like, they're like a step ahead or whatever. They're a step ahead in the process and they're like, we can do this and before anybody else. So that's another point of our course is like how to be prepared for those situations.
Are you talking about for buyer's agents?
Yeah.
Like how, as a buyer's agent, here's how to be prepared for that.
Okay. We have scripts in this course. We have the whole process in your buyer strategy session laid out. We have a pre-qualification session, like before the buyers are even with you. I mean, this course is very well outlined. Another thing that I learned from Holly that I thought was really interesting is she gives, like with her agency disclosure, she also gives a copy of this is what the offer is going to look like, you know? And I never considered doing that ahead of time. When they're like, get me the house, Sandy, I'm like, Roger that. I run away and I write whatever offer that I feel needs to be written. And then what I tell my buyers is I do a video for them. You are in complete control of these terms. These are just suggestions and advisement as me being your agent. You know, let me know if you want to change any of these terms. Like you are the boss, you're in control.
Yeah.
So that's how I do offers. But still, I mean, even though I think I'm explaining the paperwork really well, it never occurred to me to go over aspects of an offer prior to even taking them to show them houses.
Holly, do you see a lot of probably explaining yourself more than once? Because I notice that when I'm giving all the information up front, it's information overload, especially for a first-time home buyer. And so I'm like, okay, this is the process. And then I tell them, I'm like, but don't worry, I'll explain it again. Because they're like, what?
Yes.
But like, do you have like a video series or?
That's great. Yeah, that's one of the things on my to-do list, right, is to do that. But I do just tell them this is a broad stroke overview of the transaction. And as we go, I will continue to explain each step of the way. There will not be a quiz at the end of this, you know. So it's a good time to insert little jokes or quips about that. Because they do, by the time you're writing the offer, you're like, how much do you want to do for earnest money? They're like, can you remind us again what that is? But at least it's not the first time they heard it. And again, the buyer strategy session, which is what I call it now, that is the time to show my value. To show my value to them. And so even though I'm going to have to re-explain everything as we go, as any agent would, I really pivoted and established myself as the expert and the one that they want on their side. So that's the goal of the strategy session. It's not necessarily getting, every little point across to them, but the fact that, hey, there's these thousands of things, but don't worry, I got you.
Yeah.
And it's exactly like how you treat a FSBO, when you're negotiating your commission with the FSBO, or excuse me, when I'm trying to get the FSBO to list with me even, I will just present all kinds of information, like where's your seller's disclosure, where's this, where's that, and start just overwhelming them with information to the point where they're like, yeah, we do need you.
We need you. Yeah. That's great.
But they do. They need us. They need us in holding their hand through this transaction, because they think, buyers or sellers, they think, for instance, if they're going to do it on their own, they're like, well, I have an attorney to draft the contract. Well, that's great, but they don't negotiate at all.
And they
just make sure the contracts are legal.
Yeah. Tons of loopholes in the contracts. Tons. You need an expert to guide you through. Plus, if you're everybody wants the best price for a home. So you don't want to overpay. So using an agent is going to help you not overpay for that home and probably negotiate lower based on market value. So, I mean, if you're willing to pay over, by all means, go ahead.
Well, and I think two things to that is that, putting the buyer and seller together is only the first eighth of a transaction. Can a for sale by owner stick a sign in the yard and find a buyer? Absolutely. Can a buyer find a property on Zillow and go put it together? Probably. But it's all the other things in between that point to closing of escrow that you need an expert on your side. And you had made a comment earlier, Sarah, about what if you'd shown this buyer 700 homes? Well, God, I hope you didn't, right? But for me, it doesn't matter whether I've shown you one home or 70 homes. My value is the same regardless, because it's not about what I put into this particular transaction. It's about the value that I bring in case we get thrown some curveballs along the way.
Right. But a listing agent doesn't want your expertise in doing that. But, do you guys have anything else to add?
Well, I think when Holly was talking about how all the value that we bring, when we were designing this course, it reminded me how much value we actually do bring. And then we were developing the scripts to talk about the value that we bring through each step of the transaction, repair negotiations, and inspections, appraisal contingencies, all kinds of things. And it really strengthened my confidence in this whole thing. So I think that buyers agents in general, they need this blueprint.
Yeah. And what's exciting is you two paired together, I would love to know your disc profiles, because you're complete opposite.
We are definitely yin and yang.
I can relate to Sandy because we're a lot alike, as far as flying by the seat of our pants. Holly, you're a D for sure. You're a high D. What else are you? Or are you just
so long since I've looked at it?
She's not a D. There's no way. I'm a high D.
I was I'm an SC. I'm an SC for sure.
I feel like D's are more
dominant.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I think if type A personality is a lot like D, but maybe I have it wrong.
It is exactly alpha type stuff.
Well,
and that's what we were so excited about in developing this course, is a lot of it is us conversating back and forth, conversing. What the fuck am I trying to say?
Whatever.
Back and forth. And so these agents get these different perspectives, and then they can go implement in their business whichever kind of agent they want to be.
Yeah. Well,
So
also, yeah, go ahead, Holly.
I would say Sandy's the take action person. So like I've got all these great ideas. I'm full of great ideas. And so Sandy's the one who has to be the D in terms of like, well, what's going to work? Let's figure this out. Let's, set up a time in my calendar, make me focus. Otherwise I'm like squirrel, phone, bird, like in 37,000 different directions. So, if it weren't for her, this wouldn't be happening. And in a lot of ways for me, it wouldn't be happening, but it's her determination and drive that helps lasso me down to get it out and actually structured.
And then Holly's knowledge that she brings to the table, I don't think that we mentioned this in this interview, but she's a managing broker over a state of 330-ish agents.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So she knows her shit. And so there are times where I'm like pushing a boundary and Holly will either be like, hey, nope, we can't do this. We got to teach him this way. Or she'll be like, let me make sure that that's okay. And then she'll go and like triple check it. And so we've come up with a lot of like original ideas as well.
Well, that's a good point. So you're not just looking it up on state level, you're looking it up on national level, because this is you're selling this course nationally, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we throw in the disclaimers, like, you have to go by your own state guidelines. You have to check with your managing broker if you have a question or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is also like a totally brokerage neutral course. Like, it doesn't matter which brokerage you're with. It doesn't matter if you just got into real estate or if you've been in real estate like 7 years, like I have, this course is going to like be killer.
Yeah, no. And that's, a lot of people need it. I mean, same. I would love to see the course.
We'll definitely show you.
You have like templates and I don't know. Is it just like information or?
And we go over, so especially for newer buyer's agents, like we go over the offer, and then also throughout the process, like what would you do to negotiate for repairs, or what would you do in this situation? So we have all these like fucking situations that we've gone through, and we're like, we got to remember to talk about this, this, and this. So we have like these bonus sessions as well.
Okay. I love it. Anything else to add?
Take it away, Holly.
No, it's stuff that we've been training on for a while, and I've been training on for a while, but is not, I don't think available to the masses, and how I was trained, but also we're like making it better, right? Because as we work through it, and I think it just comes down to the whole idea of collaboration. We could keep this all a secret, but that's not going to improve agents and improve our industry and help us all stand up for our profession. Mm-hmm. And so by helping train others and teach what we have will help agents be able to stand up and show their worth. So
yeah, totally agree. I love that too. I mean, we can just sit here and complain about other agents, or you can help make them better.
Yeah, the industry is changing, so you got to figure it the fuck out. And why not follow a blueprint that's already figured it the fuck out?
Right. Well, and you need to be, we are a 6-figure plus business. Like, you need to be proactive and learn. Mm-hmm. It's not just going to fall on a silver platter and be handed to you. You have to figure out what you're doing. And our industry is one of the only ones that doesn't require a PhD, hundreds of thousands of dollars in college fund fees.
And it's just incredible because as a member of the public, we also kind of cover down on that a little bit in our course, but as a member of the public, when you're hiring an agent, at first you don't really see a difference. Mm-hmm. You're just like, oh my gosh, like so-and-so just got licensed, I'm going to throw them some business or whatever. But this is like the biggest fucking asset for most people. Mm-hmm. And you really want somebody that takes their education seriously, stays up on all the trends, ahead of all the trends.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's go pay, go invest in your business, and that I would get courses just like this. And I can see how valuable it's going to be. I'm excited for it to come out. Do y'all know
Us
how much
too.
you charge
We're
for
really
it?
excited to launch it.
$1 million.
That is so funny that you just did that. Because I have 2 hairless cats, and
Cue the cat.
like, you know what? I'll just be an affiliate for you guys, and I'll do lots of videos with my cats.
Yes, please do.
Send everyone your way.
No, but I mean, ultimately it will be priceless, right? But it's just so important. Like, as a managing broker, I see people leaving the industry every day. And right now there's a clear divide between those that have and those that have not. And what I mean is skills. So I'm seeing new licensees that are knocking out of the park, and people that have been hanging on to their license by a thread and doing 6 deals a year for the past decade who are finally tossing in the towel because they probably didn't, real estate wasn't their full-time jam. And I'm not saying somebody can't be successful, but I mean by that's the mindset though, right? Is they weren't putting the time and energy into the learning and going above and beyond the required CE and, the coaching and the training, and those are the ones that are starting to tap out of the industry.
Yeah.
And so
those who don't plug in don't win.
Yeah, that's great. So it's just so important that if you care about, and I think I was talking to one agent the other day and she couldn't decide if she should go back and do this part-time job that brings her joy. And I said, well, here's the deal. I said, you have to look at that as your hobby that brings you joy. And luckily for you, it helps, pays you a little bit of money. But if you need to still have the mindset that real estate is your full-time job and that's what you want to work on your skills and improve your skills. And, if you want to do this part-time hobby that brings you joy, that's great. But if it ever becomes, I'm doing this to help pay the bills, keep the lights on, unfortunately, that's going to flip the switch in your head and it's going to change your real estate business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
cue mindset.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the things.
Yep. So awesome.
Okay. Well, don't hang up. I'm just gonna end the stream now, and